Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nolan Freeland, and this week I want to make a video about the biggest mistakes I've made since I've been in the real estate game. So hopefully you guys can learn from these. Some of them cost me some money and some of them I was lucky enough they didn't. Maybe a little embarrassment or some extra time. And so maybe you can learn from these mistakes and it'll help you in your real estate journey too. I'm going to run through a list of like 5 or 6. They're not in any particular order of like worst or best. So we're just going to get right into it. So my first mistake is don't buy a property that needs work without having someone come look at it. And my particular instance was actually a mobile home and it needed to be moved. And I agreed to basically go ahead and buy it and already put some money into it. And I never had a mobile home mover or a handyman look at it. And it turns out it wasn't even in condition to be moved. And so I had to spend like $3,000 or something of labor and material costs to get this home fixed up to where it was even safe to move on the road. And it turns out I couldn't even find a spot to move it. And so I basically just put $3,000 into nothing. So that was an expensive lesson when you're 18 or 19 years old. And I shouldn't have lost money on that. It was completely stupid and a total mistake, but at the same time, I also learned from it and something I'll never do again. So hopefully it'll, that $3,000 or so will actually pay off and be worth its weight in gold, since I'll never make that mistake again. Getting into my second mistake here, and this one is completely embarrassing and should not have ever happened. I was actually negotiating to buy a pre-foreclosure property, and for whatever reason, I met with this family at my office, and we agreed to terms, and I wrote up the contract without a due diligence period. Why? I honestly cannot explain it. Completely idiotic. It makes no sense. Luckily, it turned out to not be that big of a deal. Just emailed them an electronic signature of a due diligence extension form, and that's all it took to fix it. But why? Like, again, I just can't explain why I did that. I mean, I basically put down $500 earnest money and couldn't back out of a deal. It was basically effectively what situation I put myself in there, but it turned out to not go that way. And luckily, super easy people to work with. We actually did buy that house, and they didn't have to go through foreclosure. So in the end, it worked out for everyone, but I don't understand, again, why I would do such a thing. Mistake number 3 that I'm going to share is buying property or buying rental property based on terms instead of looking at the numbers behind the deal. And it's actually worked out okay for me so far, but I guess I was just so enthusiastic to get my first rental deal done, that I pretty much didn't look at the numbers behind the deal. I just got excited about the terms that the seller was offering me for financing, which he was offering to owner finance the deal for a 20-year term at a little bit of a high interest rate, but very little down. I basically bought that deal based off the terms of the loan instead of the numbers behind the cash flow of the rental property and the expenses and everything like that. So I definitely wouldn't ever make that mistake again. It's worked out well for me so far. I mean, how else can you buy, 2 houses with $3,000? So yeah, again, it worked out so far, but could have turned out rough, and I did have to feed that deal for a while, which I expected to. So it's not like I was really going in blind, but I really didn't do any analysis or anything like that, any underwriting of the numbers behind the deal before I bought it. I just dove right in and got it done. So again, it all worked out, but I would never do that again because it has put me in tight spots before, but everything's kind of rolling now. So yeah, whatever it takes to get your first deal done. Michael Blanc talks about the law of the first deal, and I guess, that's the case there. So make sure you pay attention to the numbers and calculate, your return on your investment and your expenses, and go through all the details like that before you jump in and commit to owning, real property, because you don't want to lose a deal and you don't want things to go south. Number 4, missing out on deals because of lack of follow-up with the seller. I can think of a lot of instances where this is the case, where I've just missed out on deals because I didn't keep following up. I mean, the fortune's in the follow-up, and I just slacked off or, got something in my head where I wasn't feeling confident in the follow-up and ultimately missed out on some great deals. And also as part to this is not presenting an offer. Like if you're looking at a deal, you should always present an offer. And so in this particular case, or the example I'm going to use here, is I was looking at a duplex in Hendersonville, which is about 20-30 minutes outside of Asheville. It was a super, super sweet property. It was a side-by-side duplex built in the late 90s, I think, so relatively new construction. 2-bed, 1-bath each unit. They were clones of each other effectively. Really well taken care of deal, great lot, really good area too. And the seller wanted like $175,000, which was probably market value at the time and for that area. And I really wanted him to owner finance it. He had no debt on the property. Older guy wanted to retire, but that way he avoids capital gains. I can get it, with payments, and I think it could have worked out for everyone. And ultimately, after conversations with him and going out and looking at the property and stuff like that, he just wasn't willing to owner finance it. And I was 19 or 20 at the time. I'm 22 now. So this was 2 years ago. I couldn't, being 1099 or self-employed, I can't get a loan. And I don't think a hard money loan at $175,000 at 12% interest would really work in that type of deal. So I just couldn't make the deal work at $175,000. And the seller had also told me that he wasn't gonna, sell it for cheap, and I can respect that. I mean, it was a nice property; he shouldn't have to. And so I didn't make any offer once we kind of couldn't agree to seller financing terms. And I look back probably a year ago now, and he ended up selling that property for $100,000, which is a huge punch to the gut. And I felt that loss. I felt that loss for about a week, just knowing that I had missed out on that deal. Both sides of that unit were probably rented for $950 a month. That really sucked. I should have just made him an offer, even if it wasn't the offer he was looking for, and I could have definitely pulled that deal together at $100,000. Even if I had to get a hard money loan or whatever, I could have figured it out. So totally ridiculous that I missed out on that. And not necessarily because I didn't follow up, but because I didn't make an offer. You'll miss plenty of deals because you stop following up. And you might also miss a deal if you don't make an offer, because you never know what the seller is willing to accept, because what they say is not always the truth. So my fifth and maybe final mistake that I'm going to share is incorrectly budgeting a rehab project. And kind of like with all these mistakes, some of them are a little expensive, but all of them worked out okay in the end. And that's the case with this one too. But I was rehabbing a rental house. I bought it. It was pretty derelict condition. It was not habitable. And I sat on it for about a year, kind of before I was ready to commit to doing the project. And I estimated I'd probably need about $20,000 to bring this home back to life. And I think it was mainly because the labor took so long. That's what killed my budget. So yeah, again, I estimated about $20,000 to do the whole job. In about 60 days, started in October, so this is about a year ago, and didn't finish until December. And again, like as with any older house or deal, like there's always going to be stuff that comes up that you didn't plan on. Like I ended up having to put a new roof on because we couldn't seal the leaks, and so that killed my budget. But again, labor costs. I mean, I was 21 years old and I was writing like $3,000 a week in payroll. And that just kills a budget, especially a small budget of $20,000. And so I borrowed a hard money loan, a private loan, to finance most of it. I put $5,000 in myself, and then we ended up going to like $30,000 or $35,000 total project costs, and that sucked. I ended up having to put a majority of that on credit cards just to pay for it. The roof was a lot of that. So I got, I hate admitting this, I got a 0% APR American Express credit card, and put a lot of that on there because I knew if I kept pushing and kept going that I could get this property rented out and it would all be worth it. And so while there was headaches and struggles and some sleepless nights, I kept pushing and scraping together change and digging under the couch cushions and kept pushing to get this rented out. And I rented it out for a good price and have that tenant ever since. And he actually called me the other day to ask about renewing his lease, which is coming up. And so, yeah, make sure that if you're doing a rehab project that you're over budgeting for time completion to do the project and also project costs. I would say 25 to 50% because there's always things that are going to pop up that don't go as planned, and nothing's ever going to get completed on time. It's just the way it is. It's just part of the business. So my last one I'll throw in here is kind of a bonus lesson learned, which hopefully you can get some value from, is agreeing to buy a house when you know that you can't really make that price work. And I've done this more than once, but I think less than 5 or 10 times, where I agreed to a price with the sellers because I just didn't have the balls or wasn't brave enough to tell them that price wouldn't work. I just let my emotions get involved of a business or investment decision that was really poor. I thought I could help these people out, and I ended up having to have a harder conversation later when you can't go through with the sale. And so if you can avoid getting yourself in that situation, and like I said earlier, like just make an offer that works for you, and it is what it is. I don't really do any wholesaling anymore. I don't enjoy it. But kind of the motto of wholesaling is if you don't feel uncomfortable making your offer, it's not low enough. And I've never found that to be more true for that business. So yeah, I would say you're going to have some hard conversations either way. So do it up front so you don't find yourself, hurting your relationships or your image by having to go back and not go through with the deal because you couldn't, agree to the right price at the forefront of your conversations. So yeah, those are some lessons that I've learned since being in real estate. I hope that you guys can avoid those. And please, let me know what your biggest mistake is that you've made in real estate so far. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by mentors and more experienced investors who have warned me from making certain other mistakes, and also I've been able to learn from their mistakes. So I'm very lucky on that front. So surround yourself with good people. Thanks for checking out the video, and again, drop me a comment of what your biggest real estate mistake is. Give the video a like or dislike, and appreciate you checking out, and I'm going to try and keep putting out a video every Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.